The long winter nights of the North were not merely a time of rest. They were a test, quiet, patient, and unforgiving. As the sun slipped low behind distant hills and frozen fjords, darkness arrived early in Viking lands, settling slowly across forests, shorelines, and scattered settlements. What followed was not sudden danger, but something more subtle. Long hours where warmth could fade, vigilance could weaken, and survival depended on habits repeated carefully, night after night. Welcome to Sleepy Historian. Tonight, you are invited to slow your breathing, ease your body into rest, and gently step into a world shaped by firelight, shadow, and endurance. If you're listening from the comfort of a warm room, allow your shoulders to soften and your breath to deepen. There is nothing required of you here, only quiet attention, and perhaps the slow drift towards sleep. This is boring history for sleep. Calm, unhurried storytelling meant to soothe the mind while gently guiding it through the past. And if this kind of peaceful history helps you unwind, you're welcome to like the video or subscribe, but only if it truly brings you rest. You may even wish to share in the comments where you're listening from or what hour the night has reached for you. There is something quietly reassuring in knowing that others, across different places and time zones, are settling into the same slow stories under the same darkening sky. Tonight's journey takes us into the Viking night. Not the heroic world of long ships and battle cries, but the private, often unspoken hours that unfolded after sunset. These were the hours when families gathered close inside timber longhouses, when fires were carefully tended, when furs were arranged with intention, and when rituals, practical, spiritual, and deeply ingrained, shaped the way people endured the darkness. As daylight faded, the Viking world changed its rhythm. The bright activity of the day softened into something slower and more deliberate. Shadows lengthened across wooden walls. The air cooled, almost imperceptibly at first. Smoke drifted from hearths and curled toward low ceilings, carrying the familiar scent of firewood and cooked meals. Outside, the wind moved through trees and across snow-covered ground, erasing the last traces of warmth left by the sun. That was not simply a backdrop for sleep. It was an environment that demanded respect. Cold could creep inward even beside a glowing hearth. Hunger, fatigue, and illness did not disappear with darkness. They often grew stronger. And beyond the safety of village walls, forests and open land concealed uncertainty. Snow could hide paths. Darkness could blur distances. A single misjudgment, repeated night after night, could wear the body down quietly. This is why the Vikings developed rituals for the night. Some are meant to honor gods and ancestors believed to watch over the household. Others were purely practical, tending embers so they would last until morning, arranging sleeping spaces to preserve warmth, sharing the longhouse closely to conserve heat. These acts were not dramatic. They were small, repeated, and deeply familiar, yet they carried real importance. If you imagine yourself there now, you might notice how measured everything feels. Movement slow, voices lower. Even breathing seems to change in the dim light. Firelight flickers across timber walls, casting long shadows that stretch and sway. The smell of smoke mingles with wool, fur, and damp wood. Outside, the night deepens, and with it comes a quiet awareness. The hours ahead are long, and the morning is never guaranteed. And yet, there was comfort in this repetition. Routine became reassurance. The same tasks, performed in the same order, night after night, created a sense of control in an unpredictable world. The careful folding of furs, the steady feeding of the fire, the murmured words spoken before sleep, all of it formed a rhythm that steadied the mind and body alike. As you listen now, perhaps lying in your own bed or resting in a quiet chair, notice the contrast between your surroundings and theirs. Feel the stability beneath you. Let your breathing slow. Allow the imagined world of firelight and shadow to blend gently with the present moment. There is no danger here for you, only observation, reflection, and the soft unfolding of history. In this video, we will move slowly through the Viking night. We will observe how darkness settled over their settlements, how longhouses became islands of warmth, and how rituals shaped endurance during the coldest hours. We will notice the sounds, the silences, and the small decisions that carried people through nights that could last half the year. There is no need to rush. These stories are meant to unfold at the same pace the night once did, gradually, patiently, and without urgency. The Vikings understood that survival was not always loud or heroic. Often it was quiet, steady, and unseen. So allow your body to settle. Let the imagined glow of hearth fires soften your thoughts. The longhouses are waiting. The sun is sinking. And as the last light fades from the Norse world, the rituals of the night begin. As the sun begins its slow descent behind the rugged hills and fjords, a gentle hush settles over the Viking settlement. The change is gradual, almost imperceptible at first. Light softens, losing its sharpness, and the familiar landscape begins to blur at the edges. What was once clear and defined in daylight now takes on muted tones, soft amber fading into gray, gray slipping quietly toward violet. The land itself seems to exhale, preparing for the long hours ahead. The longhouses respond to this change as if they, too, are living things. Thick timber walls absorb the cooling air, and thatched roofs darken as shadows stretch across them. Smoke rises steadily from hearth fires inside, drifting upward in slow, curling ribbons that briefly catch the last warmth of the sun before dissolving into the cold. There is no sudden stillness here, only a steady slowing, a collective adjustment as day yields to night. Inside the longhouses, this transition is felt rather than announced. Work slows. Hands pause. Eyes glance toward doorways and narrow openings where the light is fading. The first quiet traces of cold move along the floorboards, slipping beneath benches and sleeping platforms. In response, furs are drawn closer, woolen garments adjusted, and fires stirred with careful attention. Embers are coaxed rather than fed aggressively, encouraged to glow steadily rather than flare and fade too quickly. The Vikings were deeply attuned to these subtle signals. Living so closely with the land meant recognizing changes before they became urgent. The lengthening shadows, the shift in air, the distant quieting of animals, each detail carried meaning. Night did not arrive as a surprise. It announced itself slowly, and those who listened adjusted their bodies and routines accordingly. The longhouses themselves were designed with this rhythm in mind. Raised platforms lined with layered furs offered insulation from the cold earth. Hearths were placed to provide warmth without filling the space with smoke. The air inside carried familiar scents, with smoke, dried herbs, wool, and the faint earthy presence of animals housed nearby. These smells were not unpleasant. They were reassuring, signaling shelter, continuity, and survival. As evening deepens, families gather closer together. Movement becomes more compact, more economical. People sit nearer the fire, extending hands toward its warmth, shifting position to share heat. Conversation, if it continues, softens. Laughter is subdued. Voices lower naturally, shaped by the thick walls and the awareness that sound travels differently at night. Inside the longhouse, warmth and vigilance coexist, comfort balanced carefully against the knowledge of what waits beyond the walls. At the edges of the space, small but important tasks unfold. Doors are checked, shutters are secured, wooden bolts slide into place with a dull, satisfying sound. These actions are unremarkable, yet deeply meaningful. Each one reduces uncertainty. Each one shortens the reach of the cold, the wind, and whatever else the darkness might conceal. Livestock are accounted for, feed scattered, and their low movements add a steady, living presence to the night. Outside, the settlement gradually empties. Children are guided indoors, their movements unhurried but purposeful. Paths between buildings fade into shadow. The hills that once reflected sunlight become dark silhouettes against the sky. Wind moves across open ground, carrying a low, steady sound that settles into the background of awareness. The world does not feel threatening, but it does demand respect. Firelight now becomes the primary guide. It shapes the space inside the longhouse, stretching shadows across timber walls and ceiling beams. Movements appear slower in this light, softened and elongated. It is here, in this dim glow, that the earliest rituals of the night begin to take form. Embers are tended with practiced care. Sleeping spaces are arranged for shared warmth. Small gestures, a murmured phrase, a habitual motion, a familiar pause, quietly mark the passage from day into night. Evening meals reflect this same rhythm. Food is simple and sustaining. Grains, dried fish, preserved meats, roots stored for winter. Eating is unhurried. Each mouthful is taken deliberately, not out of ceremony, but out of understanding. Energy must last. Warmth must be preserved. Nothing is wasted, not food, not motion, not attention. As darkness thickens, the outside world recedes further. Trees and rocks lose definition. Snow glimmers faintly under moonlight. Sounds carry differently now. An owl's call, the snap of frozen wood, the distant movement of wind through branches. These sounds are not alarming, but they are noticed. Over generations, the Vikings learned to read these quiet signals, adjusting their fire, their clothing, their position in the longhouse without conscious thought. By the time the sun has fully vanished, the settlement rests beneath a pale, muted night. Inside, activity slows to its lowest point. Fires burn steadily. Shadows stretch and settle. Conversation fades into silence or quiet murmurs. The focus turns inward, toward rest, preparation, and endurance. The day is complete, but the night has only begun. And beyond the warmth of the longhouse, beyond the familiar routines and secured doors, paths still stretch between settlements. Sparse villages lie scattered across the land. Travelers move carefully. Preparations continue elsewhere, in quieter places where rest must be found before darkness deepens further. It is there along those paths and in those smaller, more isolated spaces that the Viking night reveals another layer of its rhythm. As twilight deepens into the soft gray of early night, the paths between Viking settlements grow quieter. Travelers returning from distant fields or forest forays move with deliberate caution, aware that darkness carries both stillness and uncertainty. Small villages, once animated by daytime activity, now settle into a subdued rhythm. Smoke curls gently from chimneys, and the sound of a distant animal stirring in its pen punctuates the otherwise calm air. There is a sense of suspension in these moments, a pause between the sun's retreat and the full embrace of night. The roads connecting these settlements are sparsely traveled at this hour. Frost may coat the surface, catching the dim light of the moon or the lingering hues of sunset. Each step on the hard-packed earth produces a soft crunch, almost exaggerated in the hush of evening. Travelers are mindful of these sounds, their own movements deliberate and slow. Horses, if present, are guided gently, hooves making muted impressions on the path. Even the act of walking becomes a kind of ritual, a measured, patient journey that blends necessity with quiet attentiveness. Rest stops along these routes are few and often rudimentary. A simple lean-to, a small cluster of trees, or the edge of a stream may serve as a temporary shelter. Travelers gather firewood, arrange stones for hearths, and coax small flames into steady warmth. The light from these fires is cautious and controlled. Shadows dance against the surroundings, creating pockets of familiarity amid the enveloping dark. Each movement is deliberate, each action performed with the awareness that comfort in these hours is fragile and fleeting. Inside these temporary camps, arrangements for rest are made with careful consideration. Furs and blankets are layered to provide insulation against the creeping chill. Food, if carried along the journey, is modestly portioned, consumed slowly to preserve both energy and warmth. Water may be drawn from nearby streams. The gentle sound of running water accompanying the quiet crackle of the fire. In these moments, travelers are both vigilant and reflective, balancing the desire for sleep with the knowledge that survival requires patience, attention, and subtle endurance. Villages themselves echo this same quiet attentiveness. Doors are secured, livestock accounted for, and fires stoked to provide warmth without risking the smoke revealing the settlement to distant observers. A low hum of human activity continues, but the pace is measured and deliberate. Villagers adjust clothing, tuck children closer to the fire, and ensure that the paths leading to and from their homes are safe and clear. Even the smallest gestures, the repositioning of a fur, the checking of a latch, the soft reassurance of a word, carry the weight of survival in these long winter nights. Sparse lighting illuminates these settlements. Candles, oil lamps, or small hearths cast gentle pools of light that outline doors, windows, and the immediate surroundings. Shadows bend and stretch, creating a subtle, hypnotic rhythm that moves across timber walls and snow-covered paths. Within these pools of light, evening rituals unfold. Individuals might quietly sweep the floor of a longhouse, tend to small fires, or engage in soft conversation. Each motion is slow, deliberate, and comforting, reinforcing the sense of continuity and calm in the face of the approaching night. Outside, the environment itself seems to hold its breath. Winds may whisper through the trees, carrying the crisp scent of snow or the earthy tang of frozen soil. The landscape is transformed into a muted tapestry of shapes and tones. Rocks, trees, and distant hills softened by fading light. The quiet is punctuated only by subtle sounds. A distant animal calling, the faint murmur of a stream, the occasional shifting of ice or snow. These moments are not frightening. They are reminders of the steady, enduring rhythm of the world beyond human habitation. In the larger villages or trading outposts, the final preparations for night mirror those along the roads. Watchmen may take their positions, quietly attentive to the perimeter. Gates are secured, fires checked, and tools stowed safely away. These acts are repeated across settlements, creating a network of cautious awareness that extends outward into the surrounding lands. Even as the light fades, life continues in measured, deliberate steps, each gesture contributing to the rhythm of endurance and quiet survival that defines the Viking night. Within the longhouses of these villages, evening meals are concluded and the space begins to settle. Fires are allowed to smolder in hearths, casting a soft, continuous glow. Children, having been guided through the last routines of the day, now lie wrapped in furs, their breathing slow and steady. Adults move with careful attention, adjusting blankets, checking the small hearths at the center of rooms, or performing quiet prayers to the gods and spirits of the household. The air is a mixture of warmth, smoke, and the earthy scent of straw and wool. A sensory environment both comforting and deliberate, designed to aid endurance through the long, dark hours. As night deepens further, the rhythm of activity slows to a whisper. Travelers pause by their fires, savoring small comforts. A warm sip of broth, the soft touch of furs against cold skin, the careful repositioning of a cloak. Villagers listen to the subtle cues of the environment, the low murmur of animals, the soft creak of timber, the gentle sigh of wind. Each sound is cataloged, each movement considered, all contributing to the continuous attention that winter nights require. The dark is no longer merely absence of light. It is a measured, lived experience shaped by preparation, vigilance, and the quiet endurance of those who inhabit it. These sparse, deliberate movements carry an almost meditative quality. The repetition of routine, checking doors, tending fires, adjusting furs, creates a hypnotic rhythm. Sleep will come, but not immediately. The first hours of night are reserved for attentiveness, for preparation, and for the gentle negotiation between warmth and cold, light and shadow, rest and alertness. Even in stillness, there's a quiet pulse of survival. a slow but steady presence that guides both traveler and villager through the initial darkness. The evening concludes with final small gestures. Fires are monitored one last time, blankets adjusted, animals reassured by a soft hand. Eyes glance to the sky, noting the depth of darkness, the faint glimmer of stars, or the silver arc of the moon. These observations, while subtle, are part of the ritual of the night, a quiet acknowledgement of both the environment and the endurance it demands. Through these repeated, gentle acts, the Vikings maintained both comfort and readiness, bridging the gap between the waning day and the long, deliberate night ahead. As the night deepens, the light of the sun is fully gone, leaving the villages and roadside camps to rely entirely on the gentle, flickering glow of fires and candles. The small flames perform a quiet, essential work. They ward off the creeping cold, provide a sense of security, and illuminate familiar spaces in a subtle, shifting rhythm. Shadows stretch long across wooden beams and rough stone, moving with the flame in a gentle, mesmerizing dance. Each shadow reminds the traveler or villager of the shape of their surroundings, yet simultaneously conceals the unknown beyond its reach. The interplay of light and darkness becomes a slow meditation, a gentle companion to the mind as it begins to relax into the rhythm of the long night. Within homes and longhouses, fires are carefully tended. Ashes shifted would reposition to maintain a steady heat, and coals stirred to prevent cold patches from forming. The warmth is selective. It does not reach every corner, leaving small pockets of cooler air near doors and windows. This contrast between heat and cold reinforces attentiveness. One moves slowly through the space, aware of sensations across the body. The warmth of hands near the flame, the chill of a floor touched by bare feet, the soft draft from a partially open doorway. Each small sensation becomes part of the tapestry of the night, a steady rhythm that is both calming and quietly grounding. Outside, the darkness is deeper, and the shadows of trees, fences, and buildings stretch long and soft. Fires and torches create isolated pockets of light, illuminating only fragments of the world around them. Travelers pause frequently, listening to the subtle sounds that fill the night. The distant howl of wind through branches, the careful stirrings of animals, the soft crunch of snow under cautious feet. Observing these shadows and sounds is both practical and reflective. It sharpens attention while fostering a calm, deliberate awareness of one's place in the world. In villages, the movement of people is restrained and purposeful. Those responsible for tending animals make quiet rounds, ensuring that livestock are safe, fed, and sheltered for the night. Each step produces only the necessary sound, a deliberate rhythm of motion and care. Meanwhile, the hearths inside homes and longhouses cast a soothing glow on the faces of those preparing for rest. Children may be lulled to sleep by the gentle sway of shadows across the walls, while adults adjust furs and blankets, their actions methodical, almost ceremonial. The night becomes a study in patience, in measured action, and in the subtle negotiation between comfort and vigilance. The flames themselves seem to take on a life of their own in this setting. A small fire in a hearth or a candle on a table is more than a source of warmth. It becomes a companion to the night. Watching the flicker, one notices the patterns it casts, the way shadows bend, twist, and merge, creating a quiet spectacle of movement. It is hypnotic, steady, and unobtrusive. The observer may feel a gentle sense of security, knowing that light holds back some of the unknown, even as darkness stretches beyond its reach. Among travelers camping along the roads, firelight serves additional purposes. It marks the center of their temporary settlement, guiding weary bodies back to warmth after tending to animals or fetching water. It illuminates small portions of the surrounding landscape, offering reassurance while leaving the distant woods and hills in a restful mystery. The act of maintaining these flames, gently coaxing sparks to life, adding small pieces of wood, adjusting stones to shield the heat, is slow, deliberate, and meditative. Each gesture reinforces attentiveness, while allowing the mind to drift into quiet reflection. Observing the night through the interplay of firelight and shadows becomes almost a ritual. Travelers and villagers alike study the shapes cast by their surroundings, noting the gentle sway of smoke, the soft movement of animals, or the subtle shift of clouds across the moon. These observations are not hurried. They are calm, repeated, and reassuring. They remind those present that the world continues, that the night has its own rhythm, and that each careful act contributes to the ongoing stability of the environment. Evening rituals continue alongside these observations. Meals are often completed, and small, quiet conversations occur near the fire. Words are spoken softly, their sound absorbed by the stillness of the night. Children may whisper questions, or adults may share brief reflections about the day, all while keeping their attention lightly tethered to the fire and its shadows. These interactions are not lively. They are measured, comforting, and part of the steady cadence that carries the night forward. The sense of vigilance is never absent, though it is quiet and understated. Travelers may pause, ears attuned to subtle sounds, branches swaying, distant animal calls, the soft rustle of fabric as companions shift beneath blankets. Villagers may glance toward doors and windows, ensuring that the outer darkness remains a backdrop rather than a threat. Each check is calm, deliberate, and repeated, forming a steady rhythm of awareness that quietly guards against the uncertainties of the night. Throughout these long hours, the body and mind settle into a gentle endurance. Eyes trace the slow movement of shadows, hands adjust blankets or firewood, and the quiet repetition of small tasks becomes almost hypnotic. Fatigue is present but managed. The mind drifts in and out of reflection, observing without anxiety. The night, once threatening in its breadth, becomes a companion through these measured actions and careful attentiveness. As hours pass, the boundary between wakefulness and sleep begins to blur. Firelight softens, shadows lengthen and shift, and the environment is absorbed into a calm, continuous rhythm. Travelers may find themselves lying on furs, watching the last sparks die down, feeling the gentle pulse of warmth against the pervasive cold. Villagers may settle beside hearths, adjusting layers of blankets and furs, listening to the subtle, quiet sounds of the longhouse and the night beyond. The world has slowed, and the pace of life is now dictated by the gradual movement of night itself. Through this interplay of light, shadow, and observation, survival and comfort intertwine. The night is not merely endured. It is carefully navigated, with each gesture, glance, and shift in position contributing to a sense of stability and reassurance. The small flames, the soft sounds, the gentle rhythms of daily routines, they all form a quiet, enduring network of care and attention, guiding both travelers and villagers safely toward the later hours, and ultimately toward rest. As the night deepens, travelers along the rugged roads of the Norse world begin to settle into the small sanctuaries they create for themselves. Each campsite, modest though it may be, becomes a temporary haven from the creeping cold, a place where bodies can rest while maintaining just enough warmth to endure the hours until dawn. The act of preparing for sleep is slow, deliberate, and careful. Every motion carries intention, arranging furs, stacking wood, and ensuring that small fires continue to glow steadily. Each gesture is repeated in the quiet, measured rhythm of the night. Sleeping arrangements are rarely private. Companions huddle together beneath thick layers of furs and blankets, sharing body heat and forming small islands of warmth in the surrounding darkness. Travelers instinctively position themselves in a circle or semicircle around the fire, leaving open space in the center for tending the flames or moving quietly without disturbing the rest. The warmth of others is subtle but steady, a physical reassurance that survives beyond the flicker of firelight. Each breath, each gentle shift contributes to a collective endurance of cold and fatigue. The ground itself is uneven, often hard, and the act of lying down requires careful attention. Furs are layered, sometimes atop woven mats or small boughs, to cushion the body and preserve precious warmth. Hands and feet are tucked beneath layers, occasionally shifted to prevent numbness, and heads rest on folded garments or small sacks filled with straw. Each adjustment is deliberate, made slowly to avoid disturbing others, and repeated until a balance of comfort and alertness is found. Even in these modest accommodations, the body senses the necessity of careful attention, adjusting subtly to the cold, the uneven terrain, and the quiet sounds of the night. The shared warmth is more than physical. It is also a reassurance of presence. Travelers often wake to feel the subtle motion of a companion shifting, or hear the soft exhale of a friend's breath near their ear. These small signals confirm that the group remains intact, that the night's quiet dangers, cold, fatigue, or the unknown beyond the firelight, are faced together. Each subtle sound or sensation becomes part of the steady rhythm of the night, a quiet measure of life continuing in the darkness. Even as the body relaxes, a part of the mind remains attentive. Travelers notice the shifting shadows cast by the fire, the way smoke curls and drifts with the breeze, and the subtle glow of embers fading into the blackness. These visual cues are comforting, a gentle acknowledgement that the world is still orderly and familiar despite the encroaching dark. Each moment of observation reinforces the sense of stability, allowing attention to rest lightly on the environment without strain or alarm. In villages along the roads, similar routines unfold. Longhouses are filled with families and visitors alike, bodies pressed close for warmth beneath layers of furs. Children rest near the center of the room, often beside parents or older siblings, while adults take care to position themselves where they can maintain the fire and ensure safety throughout the night. Even simple movements, shifting to adjust a blanket, tending a simmering pot of water for warmth, or checking on livestock through a partially open door, are slow, intentional, and measured against the rhythm of the night. The quiet presence of others provides a subtle form of reassurance. Travelers and villagers alike awaken occasionally to reposition themselves, rub cold hands together, or tend the fire. Each action is unhurried, deliberate, and respectful of the shared space. No sound is excessive, no motion abrupt. The rhythm of life during these long winter nights is slow and steady, governed by the twin imperatives of warmth and vigilance. Even the smallest movements carry meaning. Reaching for a piece of wood to add to the fire, shifting a fur to cover a colder spot, or extending a hand to a companion to share warmth. All of these gestures become part of the silent language of survival. Each motion is repeated in careful sequence, becoming almost ritualistic over time. Through this repetition, the night stretches slowly, measured by the subtle changes in temperature, light, and the quiet motion of those nearby. For those resting along the road, the fire is both hearth and sentinel. Its glow reaches only a limited distance, leaving much of the surrounding world in gentle darkness. The contrast between the warmth near the fire and the cooler shadows beyond encourages attentiveness without urgency. Travelers move carefully when adjusting furs or tending to embers, noticing the way their breath becomes visible in the cold air, how the body responds to small shifts in temperature, and how even the slightest sound carries through the stillness. Each observation reinforces a quiet rhythm of survival, where attention and rest exist side by side. In these hours, the mind drifts easily between wakefulness and sleep. The shared warmth of companions, the soft crackle of the fire, and the rhythmic breathing of those nearby create a hypnotic environment. Each subtle sound, the distant owl, the rustle of a branch, the gentle murmur of a stream, adds to the sensation of being enveloped in the night, present yet calm. Travelers and villagers alike find themselves slipping into a slow, restorative consciousness, carried forward by the steady pulse of care, warmth, and quiet attention. Even as sleep takes hold, the body remains partly alert. Hands may twitch slightly to adjust a blanket or reposition against the cold. Feet press against warm bodies to draw heat. Eyes, though heavy, may flicker open to observe movement in the shadows, reinforcing a sense of security. The rhythm of shared warmth, careful motion, and gentle observation continues seamlessly, bridging the gap between wakefulness and rest and allowing the night to pass with measured calm. In the long hours before dawn, this shared endurance becomes almost ceremonial. Each adjustment, each glance at the fire, each soft movement among companions reinforces the unspoken understanding that the night is survived collectively. Fatigue and cold are persistent, yet the gentle, repeated rituals of tending warmth and maintaining vigilance provide a quiet structure within which rest is possible. The body and mind adjust slowly, drawing comfort from familiarity, presence, and repetition. Thus, the night stretches onward, measured not by urgency, but by small, deliberate actions. Travelers and villagers alike move in gentle harmony with the environment, adding wood to fires, shifting furs, repositioning bodies, and listening quietly. Each act is part of a careful negotiation between warmth, vigilance, and rest. In these hours, the rhythm of life is slow, the pressure of the cold present but manageable, and the mind free to drift in gentle observation. The shared warmth is both a physical and emotional anchor, a steady force guiding all toward the later hours and, eventually, toward the first light of morning. As the night deepens, the world outside the small clusters of warmth seems to expand into an almost tangible stillness. Yet, even within this quiet, the night is alive with subtle sounds, each carrying meaning and marking the passage of time. In these hours, when daylight has long receded and firelight flickers weakly, the travelers and villagers of the Norse roads rely as much on sound as on sight to understand their surroundings. The darkness is dense and enveloping, but it is punctuated by the slow, deliberate language of night. The first layer of sound is that of the fire itself. Wood crackles softly, the occasional spark leaping upward before settling quietly among glowing embers. Each subtle pop and hiss is a gentle signal that the warmth persists, that the body can remain alert yet rested. Travelers listen, not with anxiety, but with calm awareness. They adjust furs or shift position with measured care, always attuned to the quiet reassurance offered by the steady, rhythmic pulse of the fire. The fire is not merely heat. It is a companion, a low hum of persistence in the darkness. Beyond the fire, there is the subtle murmur of companions. Breaths rise and fall in unison with the rhythm of sleep. Occasionally, a hand brushes against a neighboring shoulder, or a small sigh escapes from a sleeper adjusting beneath layers of fur. These sounds are soft and unobtrusive, yet they mark the continuity of life. In the quiet night, they are comforting reminders that one is not entirely alone, that the body and mind are part of a collective endurance. Even the shift of a foot or the rustle of a blanket becomes part of this gentle tapestry of sound. Outside the perimeter of firelight, other noises assert themselves with muted clarity. The winter wind brushes against trees and rooftops, producing a low, persistent whisper. Snow, when it falls, softens the world further, muffling footsteps and dampening distant clamor. Occasionally, the wind carries the distant call of an animal, a fox perhaps, or the echo of an owl. Each sound is absorbed into the night without startling. Rather, it reinforces the sense of being alive within a larger, quiet world. Travelers and villagers alike listen, not with fear, but with steady attentiveness, understanding that these are ordinary threads in the fabric of night. The roads themselves produce subtle auditory markers. Carts and wagons that passed earlier leave traces in the form of distant, settling creaks from ruts, or the echo of a loosened wheelstone settling back into the frozen ground. Footsteps, if someone approaches, are tentative, measured, respectful of the darkness, and carry a soft rhythm that blends with the sighing of wind and the crackle of embers. These sounds are interpreted slowly, carefully, like notes in a quiet, unhurried conversation with the night. Travelers attune themselves to these signals, aware of the movement around them, but without anxiety. Animals in nearby pens contribute their own understated cadence to the night. Goats chew slowly, their heads dipped toward the straw, producing a gentle, repetitive sound. Horses shift and shuffle, breathing steadily, their low snorts echoing softly in cold air. Even the rustle of small creatures in the underbrush becomes perceptible, noticed by those who have trained their ears to the subtleties of the nocturnal landscape. Each sound becomes a measure of presence, a reassurance that the world is functioning even as most remain still. Sometimes, distant rivers or streams add another layer to the nocturnal symphony. The gentle, constant movement of water over stones produces a soft, repetitive murmur. Its consistency is grounding, a subtle background against which the night's other sounds, fire, wind, animals, companions, can be understood. Travelers notice these small signals and draw calm from them, a steady reassurance that natural rhythms continue and that the night is neither empty nor threatening, merely full of quiet life. Even human activity within the camp or village is muted. Someone stirs to add another log to the fire, softly muttering a word of caution or greeting. Faint laughter, whispered stories, or gentle instructions for tending a lantern might ripple across the campsite, all carefully measured, each tone deliberately subdued. There is a rhythm to this life in darkness, a pattern repeated night after night, and it has a hypnotic quality. Each small sound is a signal that life continues, that the night can be endured, and that rest is not only possible, but inevitable. The human ear becomes especially attuned in these hours. Travelers note the subtle shifts in wind, the faintest echo of footsteps along a frozen path, or the delicate tinkling of metal from harnesses as animals shift in their stalls. Each sound is registered with a calm attentiveness, neither alarmed nor rushed. This careful listening is part of survival, a quiet mindfulness that allows one to remain aware while still sinking gradually into the restorative flow of rest. At times, silence itself is a kind of sound, a presence that is felt rather than heard. The gaps between noises are long and undisturbed, giving weight to each crackle of wood, each rustle of fur, each exhalation of breath. In these pauses, the mind drifts lightly, carried by the slow rhythm of observation and the gentle repetition of surrounding life. There is comfort in this cadence. The night is deep, yet consistent. The darkness is complete, yet not empty. In the long hours before dawn, these sounds act as subtle markers of endurance. Travelers adjust themselves against the cold, shift furs, and feed the fire with deliberate, slow motions, always in harmony with the soft symphony around them. The rhythm of the night, animal, elemental, human, becomes a lullaby of survival. Awareness and rest exist side by side, intertwined in a gentle, persistent flow. Even as the body succumbs to fatigue, the mind remains lightly tethered to these quiet auditory cues, drifting between wakefulness and sleep without urgency or fear. Thus, the night is experienced not as emptiness, but as a tapestry of delicate, layered sounds. Each crackle of fire, sigh of wind, shuffle of feet, or soft rustle of straw contributes to a steady, enduring presence. Travelers and villagers alike find themselves moving, listening, and breathing in tandem with this rhythm. It is a quiet endurance, a gentle negotiation between alertness and rest, and a hypnotic, almost meditative state that carries them forward until the earliest hint of light in the sky signals that the night's vigil is slowly coming to its close. As the night stretches on, the quiet vigilance of travelers and villagers becomes intertwined with the slow, persistent demands of the body. Winter nights, long and unforgiving, bring not only darkness, but also a heightened awareness of human fragility, illness, and injury. Ever-present companions in this harsh environment are felt more acutely in the still hours. There is no immediate rush, no sudden panic, only the quiet acknowledgement that the body must endure and that care, however modest, must be given with patience and attentiveness. Those who travel the snow-dusted roads carry with them the aches of muscles overused, joints stiffened by cold, and the occasional wound that will not fully close in such temperatures. Even minor injuries, scrapes from uneven paths, or bruises sustained during the day, are magnified when night falls. Every movement in darkness is calculated. The body tenses slightly before shifting, each limb carefully tested before weight is applied. The cold stiffens the fingers and toes, making simple tasks such as tending the fire or adjusting furs slightly more burdensome. Yet, these motions are performed slowly, deliberately, and with a gentle rhythm, a quiet endurance that allows the body to continue despite discomfort. Illness, too, is given space to unfold in the hush of night. A cough rises from the throat, dampened by layers of furs and blankets, followed by a quiet pause to catch breath. A fever brow is cooled with a cloth dampened from melted snow or tepid water, hands moved in soft, measured motions. The night allows for attention to these small acts of care, unhurried and attentive, yet the darkness also magnifies isolation. Those who are ill may lie awake while others sleep, listening to the steady rise and fall of their companions' breathing, drawing reassurance from the continuity of life around them. There is an unspoken understanding that while some cannot be cured quickly, presence and gentle care are themselves forms of protection and endurance. The long hours magnify awareness of fatigue. Muscles ache, eyes grow heavy, and the weight of the day settles firmly onto shoulders and backs. Travelers shift in their resting spots, drawing furs closer, curling more tightly to conserve warmth, and occasionally moving to stretch a stiffened limb. Each motion is slow, almost meditative, as if the body is negotiating with itself. Endure, rest, preserve warmth, conserve energy. The night stretches endlessly, yet the rhythm of small movements and quiet breathing creates a steady current, carrying those awake and those resting alike through the hours. Sounds in these hours are often tied to human discomfort. A low groan may arise as someone turns in the snow or within a shared sleeping area, adjusting to ease a sore joint. The soft cough of another rises and falls, a gentle echo that blends with the murmuring wind and the distant whisper of trees. Even the subtle dragging of a blanket over frozen ground becomes audible in the stillness. These are not alarming noises. They are part of the pattern, a testimony to endurance and a human capacity to adjust, to persist quietly despite physical strain. Companions provide what assistance they can, though their methods are subtle, measured, and calm. A hand might brush across a shoulder to adjust a cloak, offering warmth and support. A quietly spoken word reassures the one who stirs or shifts in discomfort. In some cases, a small splint may be fashioned from wood or tightly bound cloth to stabilize a strained limb. The materials are basic, the techniques modest, yet the attention is deliberate. Care in the night is a soft, continuous rhythm rather than sudden intervention, a slow dance between presence and patience, between observation and gentle action. Winter itself compounds these challenges. Cold air seeps through furs and blankets, stiffening fingers and toes, and carrying the subtle scent of frost and wood smoke. Travelers might huddle more tightly, sharing warmth through proximity and adjusting their posture to conserve heat. Even minor exposure can aggravate aches and chill the body, making attentiveness essential. The night, while silent, exerts constant pressure. Every breath of cold, every creak of frozen snow, every shift of wind reminds those awake that endurance is both physical and mental, a combination of attention, calmness, and quiet persistence. Nutrition and hydration are also part of this nocturnal rhythm. Small sips of tepid water or broth might be taken quietly, careful not to disturb others. A morsel of preserved food, slowly chewed, provides energy for the long hours ahead. The act of eating, even minimally, becomes part of the gentle motion of survival. Each small gesture, each measured movement, is a reminder that the body, must be maintained, even in darkness, even as sleep beckons. For those seriously ill or wounded, the night can be particularly heavy. The mind drifts between consciousness and slumber, alert to small discomforts, yet soothed by the rhythm of fire, breath, and sound around them. Companions remain nearby, attentive to subtle shifts, ready to respond with quiet care. The sense of community, though restrained and unhurried, offers reassurance. No one faces the long night entirely alone. The night is difficult, yet it is manageable provided attention and patience are maintained. There is also the weight of anticipation. Travelers and villagers alike are aware that the night is long, and that movement in the dark carries its risks. Yet, by attending to illness, adjusting injuries, and moving with calm deliberation, they persist. Each motion is slow and thoughtful. Each breath is measured. The darkness, once formidable, becomes a companion rather than a threat. The long night stretches onward, yet within its quiet expanse, human endurance is quietly celebrated. The body adapts, companions support, and even illness is navigated with measured care. As dawn draws nearer, the subtle sounds of fatigue continue. Soft shifting of bodies, careful tending of fires, whispered acknowledgement of discomfort, and occasional gentle sighs as someone settles into a slightly more comfortable position. The long hours of darkness have tested both body and mind, yet they also have taught resilience, calm attentiveness, and the hypnotic rhythm of night survival. Those who have endured in the night understand, in a quiet and profound way, the delicate balance between rest and vigilance, between pain and attention, between endurance and surrender to sleep. The night, filled with illness, injury, and fatigue, is ultimately navigated not through dramatic action, but through countless small, deliberate acts. These are gentle, hypnotic movements, tending fire, sharing warmth, adjusting furs, observing sound, offering presence. The body and mind engage in a slow, steady negotiation with the elements, with physical strain, and with the perpetual darkness. By morning, even a most fatigued traveler has accumulated a quiet sense of achievement, a subtle confidence that night, though long and arduous, has been endured. The long night concludes softly, almost imperceptibly, as the first faint light begins to brush the horizon. The subtle symphony of groans, coughs, rustling blankets, and crackling embers gives way to quieter motions. Travelers and villagers prepare to rise, moving carefully, sensing both relief and continued weariness. Night's endurance has left its mark, but it has also brought the gentle understanding that patience, attention, and subtle care are sufficient to navigate darkness. As the night deepens, the attention of those tasked with guarding roads, villages, and isolated outposts becomes quietly intensified. The cold, still air heightens awareness. Even the faintest rustle of wind through bare trees or the soft crunch of snow under a boot is noticed and noted. Outposts are small, often simple constructions, yet they serve as critical vantage points, allowing those stationed there to survey the surrounding land. Guards move deliberately, their steps measured, careful not to disturb the thin layer of frost covering the ground. The position of a guard is never passive. It requires patience, endurance, and a keen eye. In the long hours of darkness, the mind hovers between alertness and fatigue, each minute stretching into the next. Observant eyes scan the horizon, noting shapes and shadows, familiar landmarks, and the subtle movements of wildlife. The cold sharpens the senses, making even the softest sounds carry further. The distant cry of an owl, the whisper of branches under a wandering animal, the occasional murmur of travelers or villagers far away. Each sound is cataloged silently, analyzed and weighed against what is expected and what is unusual. Guards often find themselves in a quiet rhythm. Some stretch slowly to relieve stiffened muscles. Others shift weight from foot to foot, while a few pause to breathe deeply, allowing the crisp night air to fill the lungs. Each movement is deliberate, gentle, and hypnotic in its repetition. In the solitude of the outpost, these motions maintain warmth, circulation, and alertness. Even the simplest gestures, a finger tracing the edge of a wooden railing, a slow glance toward a distant tree line, become acts of mindful endurance, helping the body remain present in the cold night. The outpost itself is both refuge and observation point. A modest fire may burn in a metal brazier, offering faint warmth and casting long, flickering shadows across frost-touched surfaces. The guard's silhouette moves slowly within the firelight, a quiet companion to the soft hiss of flame and the occasional pop of frozen wood. Shadows stretch and twist along the ground, blending with the darkness beyond. The interplay of light and dark becomes a gentle focus for the eyes, a hypnotic accompaniment to the steady work of remaining vigilant. Time passes differently in these hours. A minute may feel like 10, yet the continuous act of observation produces a slow, meditative rhythm. The guard's eyes adjust to the dimness, learning to discern subtle contrasts. The glint of ice on a branch, the faint motion of an animal passing in the distance, the occasional flicker of lanterns for a village far away. Each movement is considered, every detail noted. Patience and quiet endurance become as essential as warmth and food. At the outpost, the mind drifts lightly, hovering at the edge of sleep while remaining alert. Thoughts meander gently, returning to familiar patterns, the position of watch posts along the road, the habits of local wildlife, the quiet routines of travelers and villagers. There is a subtle interplay between fatigue and attention, a delicate balance maintained through repeated gestures, measured breathing, and slow shifts in posture. This calm, controlled state allows the guard to remain capable and aware, even as the night stretches on and the cold begins to seep into bones and muscles. Communication is minimal but deliberate. Occasionally, a whisper may travel between nearby outposts, a soft note carried on the wind, offering reassurance without breaking the rhythm of the night. Small signals, a lifted hand, a gentle tap, a faint light in a window, serve to coordinate movement and maintain connection. These gestures are not urgent. They're deliberate, calm, and almost hypnotic in their repetition. They remind the watcher that even in isolation, there's a subtle network of care and observation, a quiet human presence against the vastness of the night. The physical challenges of night watch are constant. The cold stiffens joints, making even the slowest movements a test of patience. Fingers and toes grow numb, breath rises in soft clouds, and the weight of clothing can feel oppressive after long hours. Yet, the guard adapts through repeated motions, a slow stretch, a gentle rub of hands together, shifting from one foot to another. Each small act preserves alertness, wards off fatigue, and reinforces endurance. The rhythm is hypnotic, lulling in its consistency, yet essential to survival and responsibility. Food and water are consumed sparingly in quiet intervals. A small piece of dried meat, a sip of lukewarm water, or a handful of nuts may be taken while leaning against the outpost railing. These actions are slow and deliberate, almost ritualistic, providing sustenance and comfort without breaking the stillness of the night. Even simple gestures of nourishment become part of the hypnotic pattern of observation, care, and endurance. As hours pass, the subtle sounds of the night fill the mind of the vigilant observer. The distant call of a wolf or fox, the crunch of snow under an animal's paws, the occasional snap of a frozen branch, all are recorded silently, compared against memory, and weighed against expectation. Even when no immediate danger exists, the act of noticing, of being attuned, becomes a meditative exercise. The mind floats gently along with the motions of body and surroundings, sustained by a slow rhythm of awareness and endurance. Sleep, when it comes, is light and punctuated. A guard may close eyes for a few moments while leaning against the wooden posts, alert even in rest. Muscles relax gradually, but attention never fully fades. The night is long, and the watch continues, sustained by slow breathing, measured shifts, and quiet presence. The darkness, once intimidating, becomes a companion, teaching patience, endurance, and the subtle art of observation. In these hours, there is an intimacy with the landscape, the cold, the wind, the frozen earth, and the distant lights of villages or travelers. The guard experiences a heightened sense of time and presence, a slow immersion in night that sharpens awareness and deepens endurance. Each hour blends into the next, a gentle sequence of observation, small motions, and quiet patience. The world beyond the outpost remains largely unseen, yet fully sensed. As dawn approaches, the first faint glimmers of light on the horizon offer subtle relief. The night has been long, and the guard, despite fatigue and cold, has navigated its hours with quiet endurance. Each sound, each motion, each attentive gesture has contributed to a slow, hypnotic rhythm that carries through the darkness. By morning, the relief is gentle rather than sudden, a soft acknowledgement that the night's responsibilities have been met, that vigilance has been maintained, and that endurance has been quietly honored. The courtyard, lying at the heart of a castle or fortified settlement, is a place of quiet vigilance when darkness has fully settled. It is empty of the bustle of the day, yet it holds an almost tangible presence of those who remain behind. The cold stone underfoot retains the memory of footsteps. The walls reflect shadows and subtle, shifting patterns, and the low firelight from scattered torches casts a warm, gentle glow that hardly dispels the pervasive darkness. Guards stationed here move slowly, deliberately, their footsteps muffled by the thin layer of frost or straw scattered across the ground. The courtyard is not merely open space. It is a place of layered responsibility. One must observe the gates, the surrounding walls, and the approach to the inner quarters. The night stretches long, and patience becomes as essential as warmth. Muscles ache from standing still, fingers stiffen in cold air, yet each movement, each glance, is carefully considered, preserving alertness while allowing for brief moments of internal calm. In these hours, the courtyard is a study in subtle activity. Small embers from the torches flare and die with quiet persistence. Shadows stretch and bend across the cobblestones, and occasional soft sounds, water dripping from an eave, a distant animal stirring, punctuate the stillness. Every sound is absorbed and cataloged, measured against the expected patterns of night. Even when no immediate threat presents itself, the act of noticing becomes a form of meditation, a gentle engagement with the slow rhythm of the hours. The watchers of the courtyard adopt a slow, hypnotic routine. Some pace gently along the perimeter, their boots making soft impressions in frost or straw. Others stand in quiet observation, arms folded or resting on the hilt of a weapon, eyes tracing the lines of walls, gates, and archways. Movements are deliberate, almost ritualistic, as though the repetition itself is a shield against fatigue. The cold air pricks skin, stiffens joints, and rises in soft puffs with each exhalation, yet sharpens senses, heightening awareness of the subtle changes in light, shadow, and sound. Occasionally, the courtyard may be punctuated by faint interactions. A whispered word between guards, a gentle tap on a shoulder, or a shared nod acknowledges presence and coordination. These gestures are quiet, intentional, and almost hypnotic, a soft thread of human connection in the stillness. They reinforce a sense of calm vigilance, maintaining order without disturbing the meditative quiet of the night. Even the simplest acts acquire significance here. Adjusting the folds of a cloak, rubbing frost-numbed fingers, or shifting weight from one foot to another becomes part of the slow choreography of endurance. Each small motion preserves alertness, wards off fatigue, and contributes to a rhythm that is comforting in its predictability. The courtyard, though cold and shadowed, becomes a space of meditative awareness, where each guard learns to coexist with both vigilance and the gradual pull of tiredness. The air itself seems alive in the quiet of the courtyard. The soft sigh of wind through high walls, the distant hoot of an owl, the low murmur of a river or stream beyond the gate, all become part of a subtle symphony of night. Each sound is gentle, yet carries meaning, drawing attention without urgency. The watcher's ears attuned to the quietest shifts, discerning between the ordinary and the unusual, balancing patience with alertness. Light, though limited, plays an essential role in the courtyard. Torches, brazier fires, or the faint reflection of moonlight on stone surfaces create an ever-shifting landscape of illumination. Shadows stretch and move slowly, blending edges and softening the starkness of the night. Guards become accustomed to this interplay, letting their eyes rest on the dimly lit patterns, noticing small details without straining. The dance of light and dark becomes a companion to the rhythm of footsteps, breathing, and attentive observation. Isolation and presence coexist here. The courtyard is largely empty of the general populace, yet it is rich with the quiet activity of those who watch. This solitude is neither lonely nor alarming. It is a gentle immersion in stillness. Guards learn to occupy the space fully, integrating small movements, slow breathing, and attentive observation into a hypnotic routine. Time stretches, blending hours into an almost seamless flow, as the courtyard remains a steadfast space of endurance and measured vigilance. Physical endurance is constantly tested. Standing or pacing in cold air saps warmth and energy, and the body must adapt through careful, repeated motions. The guard may rub hands together, stretch shoulders, or shift from foot to foot. Clothing layers, furs, and leather provide insulation. Yet the cold presses insistently, a quiet reminder of the fragility of human warmth. Each small adjustment preserves strength, sustains attention, and reinforces the gentle rhythm of the watch. The mind, too, engages in a slow, comforting exercise. Observers track familiar points of reference, the archways, the main gate, the edge of the courtyard, and note any subtle deviations. Shadows that linger too long, faint noises out of place, the shifting patterns of torchlight, all are registered calmly, without panic, yet with careful attention. In this way, the guard inhabits a mental landscape of slow, deliberate awareness, a continuous interplay between observation and measured response. The hours of a night extend in quiet cycles. Breathing becomes a steady, meditative rhythm. Footsteps follow a gentle cadence, and the eyes trace patterns in the stone, frost, and firelight. Even the occasional stirring of a fellow guard or the distant movements of animals outside the walls are absorbed into the ambient experience. Each moment, each repetition, contributes to a hypnotic state where endurance, observation, and calm coexist. By the approach of early morning, the courtyard's stillness softens further. The first faint glimmers of light on the horizon cast long, pale shadows across the stones. The guards, despite fatigue, experience a quiet satisfaction in having endured the hours of darkness. Every shift, every attentive gesture, every subtle observation has maintained safety, continuity, and rhythm. The courtyard remains a place of gentle reflection, where the night's endurance lingers in the body, mind, and senses. In this silent, frozen space, the courtyard itself becomes a witness. It holds memory in the stones, in the frost, and in the soft traces left by passing guards. Every careful step, measured breath, and watchful glance contributes to a slow, enduring story of human presence against the persistent quiet of winter nights. The night has passed, and the courtyard, though still and empty, continues to hum with the soft echoes of careful vigilance, endurance, and the gentle persistence of those who watch. High above the courtyard, towers rise like silent sentinels, their stone walls thick and cold, holding the night wind with quiet insistence. From these heights, the far-off watch unfolds in slow, deliberate movements. The sentries stationed atop the ramparts maintain a careful rhythm, eyes scanning the darkened horizon, hands resting lightly on weapons or rails, yet always ready, though the readiness itself is calm, methodical, and unhurried. Time moves differently here. It stretches into long, measured intervals, and each guard becomes acutely aware of the subtle passage of hours. The towers provide vantage points that reveal the broader landscape. Faint outlines of distant forests, meandering rivers, or snow-covered plains can be glimpsed under the dim moonlight or through the first hints of pre-dawn glow. From this height, small lights flickering in far villages are tiny, distant beacons, evidence of life continuing elsewhere, parallel to the slow vigilance maintained atop these walls. The cold is sharper here, more penetrating than in the courtyard below, and the wind carries both silence and distant sounds, demanding careful attention without haste. Sitting or leaning against the crenellations, guards feel the gradual ache of muscles stiffened by long hours of stillness. To endure, they shift slowly from foot to foot, rotate shoulders, or rub numb fingers together, each motion deliberate and measured. The rhythm of observation blends with the rhythm of the body, creating a hypnotic interplay, a careful dance of endurance where alertness must be balanced against exhaustion. Even the simplest movements, the gentle adjustment of a cloak, the repositioning of a hood against the wind, become part of the long, meditative cycle of a watch. At this height, perspective alters not only sight but also perception of time. The world below, with its quiet courtyards, sleeping chambers, and wandering patrols, seems slower still, muted by distance. Each sound carries differently. The distant tolling of a bell, the faint howl of an animal, or the subtle creak of timber in the cold. These are noted, cataloged, and measured against expectation. The guard learns to distinguish between ordinary echoes and the unexpected, training senses gently, without urgency, in a continuous practice of careful observation. The far-off watch carries its own kind of ritual. Steps along narrow walkways, leaning over battlements to survey low-lying roads, whispering observations to a fellow sentinel. They all follow the same slow, repetitive cadence. Movement is controlled and deliberate. Conversation is sparse, kept at low, steady tones to maintain the quiet vigilance demanded by night. Torches, if present, flicker faintly, casting long shadows across the stone. These shadows shift imperceptibly, blending with the darkness beyond the walls, forming patterns that the eyes learn to track slowly over hours without strain. Even the wind plays a role. Gusts and soft currents press against cloaks and armor, carry the scent of frost, smoke, or distant hearths, and sometimes deliver an unexpected chill that awakens sleepy limbs. Each shift in temperature, each brush of cold against skin, becomes a gentle reminder of the fragility of human endurance. The body adjusts, muscles tighten, hands flex and release, and the mind remains alert, meditative, and undisturbed. The watch becomes a slow negotiation between human presence and environmental challenge. From these ramparts, one may occasionally spot movement along distant roads or in the shadowed woods. Travelers, faint lights, or animals are observed with calm attention, noting patterns and timing. The act of watching is both a duty and a meditative exercise. The eyes train themselves to see in low light. The mind learns patience, and the body finds a quiet equilibrium in the cold and stillness. There's a subtle comfort in this routine, a reassurance in the steady repetition, as hours pass without urgency, yet with a constant, watchful presence. The architecture of the towers contributes to the hypnotic nature of the watch. Narrow staircases winding up through stone, arrow slits framing distant views, and the high parapets all shape the rhythm of movement. Each step is deliberate, each pause is measured, and every moment spent observing distant terrain blends into a seamless flow. Even the smallest details, the frost forming on stone ledges, the breath rising in clouds, the way shadows shift across the ramparts, become familiar companions to the sentinel. Sometimes, the guard atop the tower is accompanied by others on parallel or adjacent ramparts. Coordination is silent yet precise. Nods, subtle signals, shared glances. This quiet teamwork maintains an awareness that stretches across the entire fortification, connecting tower to courtyard, parapet to gate. Despite the apparent solitude, there is a rhythm of human presence that stretches through the night, a network of gentle observation and endurance, linking body, mind, and environment in slow, hypnotic patterns. Even the smallest lapse can carry consequence, though, in this context, consequence is quiet and understated. A misread shadow, a missed sound, a moment of inattention could be noted later, a lesson in vigilance learned without urgency. The danger is present yet unthreatening in an immediate sense, more a gentle, insistent reminder of human limits and the quiet persistence of the natural world. It is a survival framed in patience, endurance, and subtle awareness rather than alarm. By the later hours of night, the ramparts themselves take on an almost human quality. They echo footsteps softly, retain warmth from bodies and small fires, and serve as conduits for the passage of sound and breath. Guards become attuned to these textures, feeling the cold stone beneath hands, sensing slight vibrations in the floor, noticing subtle shifts in shadow and light. Every sense contributes to a slow, encompassing awareness that stretches across space and time. Eventually, the first hints of morning begin to appear. Light touches distant clouds, casting pale reflections on stone and frost. The long vigil of the night draws toward its quiet conclusion, but the rhythms established, careful pacing, measured observation, attentive listening, remain ingrained. Guards descend slowly, transferring their alertness to those coming to relieve them, passing along the quiet knowledge accumulated in hours of careful endurance. The far-off watch, though no longer at its peak of darkness, leaves a lingering sense of continuity. Each tower, each rampart, each sentinel contributes to the silent order of the night, ensuring that life below continues undisturbed. The landscape, once obscured, begins to reveal details previously hidden, but the memory of stillness, patience, and subtle vigilance remains, a soft imprint on the mind and body of those who kept the watch. The first faint light of dawn creeps over the horizon, soft and hesitant, brushing the edges of stone walls with a pale, almost imperceptible glow. The night, which seemed endless, slowly begins to loosen its hold. From high towers, the sentries notice the sky's subtle shift, a gradual lightening from deep indigo to muted gray, then to faint lavender. The cold still bites, and the frost clings stubbornly to cobblestones and ramparts, but there is a gentle promise in the changing light, a signal that the long night of watchfulness is nearing its quiet end. Inside the castle, or the outpost where men and women have kept vigil, movement stirs with the morning. A sentinel descends the narrow stone staircases, boots echoing softly, each step careful to avoid startling the household or comrades still resting. Cloaks are tightened, hoods are drawn up, and the chill air is met with slow, deliberate breaths, warming the chest before each inhale. The body awakens gradually, muscles easing from long periods of stillness, joints loosening, while the mind slowly shifts from the meditative alertness of night to the measured routine of morning. The courtyards begin to show signs of life. A stable hand emerges quietly to check on animals, their hooves brushing against frost-laden ground. Smoke rises lazily from small hearths, blending with the lingering mist of early morning. The subtle aroma of burning wood and straw drifts across the walls, bringing warmth to those still damp from night. Even in these early hours, the routine is gentle. Water is drawn slowly from wells, buckets clink softly, and the sound carries through empty corridors with a hollow, comforting resonance. In sleeping quarters, occupants stir with minimal disturbance. Blankets are folded with quiet care, and shared warmth from night is gradually replaced by the increasing comfort of early light. Inhabitants of the castle move with small, deliberate motions. A hand brushing frost from a window, a careful stretch to ease stiffness, or the soft rearrangement of bedding to accommodate the first movement of those preparing for the day. Each action is unhurried, part of a slow ritual, balancing readiness with preservation of energy after long, cold hours. Breakfast preparations are initiated gradually. The smell of oats simmering or bread baking begins to permeate hallways. Fires are tended slowly, stones shifted to maximize heat, and utensils placed carefully, their clatter subdued against the stone. It is a quiet choreography. Each participant knows their part, each motion measured, and all combined to sustain the household in its early rhythm. The survival aspect remains subtle but present. Those in charge of provisions assess warmth, fuel, and food with steady, calm diligence, ensuring that the lingering effects of night do not press too heavily on the body. Along the outer walls, patrols begin their rounds again, though the pace is gentler than in the depths of darkness. Eyes still scan the horizon, noting shifts in light, distant movement, and the subtle indications of life waking across the landscape. The wind is less biting than hours earlier, though a lingering chill remains, reminding all that winter nights are never truly gone. Guards move with the same careful attention, aware that the night's vulnerabilities fade only slowly, and that the world, though brighter, still demands measured caution. In kitchens and service areas, small rituals resume. Water is carried from barrels, pots and pans are set over gentle flames, and the first tasks of the day are performed quietly. Even these mundane activities, scraping frost from fire pits, laying straw for animals, or stirring thick porridge, are framed by a subtle awareness of the night just past. The cold has left its mark, the dark hours have tested endurance, and every action now is informed by both necessity and reflection. The castle or outpost itself seems to breathe in response to the changing light. Smoke rises in soft columns, frost glints in the pale sun, and the stones that held the night wind now absorb the first touches of warmth. Corridors, once hushed, echo faintly with footsteps, the soft murmur of conversation, or the gentle clatter of implements. Each sound is measured, deliberate, and carries a calm reassurance that life continues, that the passage from night to day is steady, predictable, and quiet. Even the far-off watch from towers adjust to this transition. Sentries shift from the careful scrutiny of night to the measured observations of morning, noting distant villages, roads, or riverbanks now visible in gentle light. Each gaze is slower, more reflective, still imbued with vigilance, but softened by the gradual lifting of darkness. The night's subtle lessons, patience, endurance, awareness, persist, influencing motion and thought even as the day asserts itself. By the time the sun edges higher, its rays pale and cool but steady. The household has largely emerged from the cocoon of night. Tasks proceed with rhythm and order, without hurry, and the quiet endurance of the hours just past informs each movement. Those who kept the night watch retire, their rest planned with care to recover from cold, fatigue, and attentiveness. Those who remain continue morning chores, their work slowed and mindful, a gentle balance between efficiency and preservation of strength. It is in this slow emergence from darkness to light that the rhythm of life in winter is revealed. The dangers of night, cold, silence, unseen hazards, fade gradually, but their memory lingers as a soft imprint. Each person moves carefully, thoughtfully, in recognition of the body's limits, the environment's pressures, and the quiet lessons learned in the long vigil. Survival is rarely sudden. It is cumulative, subtle, and maintained through attentiveness, care, and steady pacing. Morning light does not erase the traces of night entirely. Frost still glistens, a gentle reminder of hours spent in cold endurance. Shadows, though shorter and less threatening, hint at corners once watched with care. The mind carries memory of the dark's slow, unrelenting rhythm, a gentle awareness that vigilance is part of daily life, not only in moments of perceived danger. In this reflective space, movement is calm, deliberate, and uninterrupted, a continuation of the hypnotic rhythm established long before dawn. Even as activity increases, water carried, fires stoked, animals fed. The slow, measured pace of the castle persists. Every action, every step, is part of an unspoken agreement to preserve energy, to honor the body's need for warmth and rest, and to remain quietly aware of the subtle pressures of environment. In these early hours, one can observe how survival and routine intertwine seamlessly, how endurance is cultivated not in extremes, but in gentle, patient repetition. By mid-morning, the household has settled into its rhythm. The night has ended, yet its quiet lessons endure. The body feels warmed, the mind calm, and the environment, though demanding in its own quiet way, is understood, predictable, and manageable. In this space, time unfolds slowly, deliberately, a gentle bridge between the vigilance of night and the measured activity of day. As the pale light of morning strengthens gently, the household settles into its early routines. The frost that clung to every surface overnight begins to soften under the slow arrival of warmth, though the air remains crisp and biting. The first tasks of the day are deliberate and unhurried. Buckets of water are drawn from wells, each movement careful, slow, mindful of the cold that stiffens the fingers. The sound of wooden handles against stone is muted, almost melodic, as if the castle itself is breathing along with its occupants. In the stables, animals begin to stir. Horses shift their weight from one hoof to another, snuffling the frosty air, their breath rising in gentle plumes. The stable hands work patiently, brushing frosted coats and arranging hay. Each motion is measured, conserving energy for both human and animal. The warmth from early fires is coaxed into life, and the flickering flames dance quietly across walls, casting gentle illumination on rough timber beams and stone floors. The aroma of burning straw and wood permeates the air, a familiar comfort, signaling that the household is slowly awakening. Food preparation begins in earnest, though still without haste. Thick porridge is stirred over small flames. Bread is arranged for baking, and water is heated for early washing or cleaning. Every sound, wood scraping, water pouring, coals shifting, is softened by awareness of the early hour and the fatigue still lingering from the night. The kitchen is a place of quiet activity, each person immersed in repetitive tasks, their minds calm, almost meditative as the rhythm of survival gently asserts itself. Outside, the courtyard is alive with subtle movement. Frost melts under footsteps, leaving damp impressions on stone. Workers carry firewood from piles, stacking logs carefully near hearths to ensure continuous warmth. A watchful eye remains on the horizon. Even as dawn offers clarity, the memory of night lingers. Patrolling guards move slowly along the walls, attentive to sounds in the distance. The soft creak of gates, the rustle of animals, the faint whistle of wind through battlements. Survival here is not loud or hurried. It is quiet, measured, and maintained through repetition and care. Some begin to tend gardens or small plots near the castle. Frostbitten leaves are moved aside, soil checked for hidden ice, and the day's work is planned with patience. Tools are lifted with deliberate attention to grip and posture, muscles still adjusting from the long night. Even in these mundane chores, the slow pressure of survival is apparent. Hands must remain nimble despite cold, steps steady despite stiffness, and minds alert to subtle shifts in the environment that may indicate a hazard or opportunity. Inside living quarters, preparations for personal warmth continue. Blankets are folded with care, garments layered deliberately, and fires are stoked to maintain comfort through the morning. Individuals move slowly, almost ritualistically, checking on companions, sharing warmth, and ensuring that no one is left exposed to the residual chill. Conversation is minimal, a soft murmur accompanying the measured rhythm of work. Even speech is carefully restrained, conserving both energy and warmth. For those responsible for food storage and supplies, the early morning is a time for quiet assessment. Barrels of grain are inspected, firewood counted, and water levels noted. Each task is done slowly and methodically, with a gentle awareness that these resources though sufficient today, may not last indefinitely. Survival here is never taken for granted, and the subtle pressure of winter's demands underlies every careful motion. The outer walls see continued activity. Guards exchange shifts quietly, reviewing notes from the night, checking the perimeter, and ensuring that nothing from the darkness lingers unobserved. The transition from night to day does not eliminate the possibility of danger. Rather, is an adjustment of awareness. Movement along walls, quiet observation from towers, and the measured maintenance of weapons and equipment are all performed with calm diligence, reinforcing a routine built on both habit and necessity. The day's early chores also extend to maintaining fire and light within interior spaces. Torches are trimmed, braziers replenished, and smoke directed thoughtfully to avoid discomfort. Each flame is handled with care, a source of warmth and reassurance, and the soft crackle of burning would contribute to the gentle rhythm of the morning. Time passes slowly, each hour stretching comfortably, allowing bodies to acclimate to light and warmth while preserving the endurance built through the night. Throughout the castle or outpost, the quiet persistence of survival is evident. Every individual, whether tending animals, stoking fires, or maintaining walls, participates in a choreography of measured effort. Each movement respects fatigue, cold, and the lingering influence of the night's vigilance. Even as the world grows brighter and more visible, there's an underlying continuity. The habits of endurance, the gentle repetition of tasks, and the subtle attention to body, environment, and resources remain central. By mid-morning, the collective rhythm is firmly established. Food is prepared, warmth is maintained, and the household begins to operate in a slow, purposeful flow. The night's lessons, the patience, awareness, and quiet endurance it demanded, remain tangible. Movements are calm, deliberate, and reflective, and a mental imprint of darkness shapes each action. Even as daylight strengthens, the necessity for careful observation and measured effort persists, reminding all that survival is not only about immediate danger, but also about subtle pressures, endurance, and the quiet management of energy and resources. The morning stretches gently onward. The frost retreats gradually under the sun's weak rays. Animals are fed and groomed, and those responsible for maintenance of structures ensure that doors, windows, and roofs are prepared for the lingering cold. Each task flows into the next with minimal haste. The household moves as a single organism, steady and consistent, shaped by the demands of environment, season, and the memory of the long night. It is in this continuous, measured engagement with survival and routine that the subtle, hypnotic rhythm of winter life is reinforced. Every footstep, every stir of fire, every sound of water carries with it the quiet lessons of the past hours. The body remains engaged but not overstrained, the mind attentive yet calm, and the environment is respected as both companion and challenge. Morning chores, simple in appearance, are thus part of a continuum, an extension of endurance, preparation, and awareness that the night required, carried gently into day. The quietude is punctuated only by the occasional clink of metal, the muted conversation of workers, or the distant call of birds braving the lingering frost. Each sound reinforces the calm atmosphere, a reminder that life continues in slow, deliberate motion. Even as daylight advances, the rhythm is unbroken, a soft bridge between survival and comfort, vigilance and routine, endurance and quiet reflection. By mid-morning, the soft illumination of winter sunlight has begun to fill the spaces that were once dim, but the chill in the air remains, a subtle reminder that the night's cold lingers. The frost has largely receded from stone surfaces, but patches cling stubbornly to corners and shaded recesses. Movement continues at a gentle pace, as if the day itself is unfolding lazily, stretching hours into quiet rhythms. The household, long accustomed to the gradual cadence of winter, flows through its routines with deliberate, unhurried motions. Those responsible for food and provisions maintain a careful pace. Bread that began rising during the early hours is now transferred to heated ovens, its surface slowly golden, the warm aroma spreading softly through halls and kitchens. Porridge is ladled into bowls, shared quietly among residents and workers, with each spoonful a subtle comfort against lingering fatigue. Even these ordinary tasks are executed with attentiveness. A careful tilt of a pan, the measured stirring of a simmering pot, and the soft scraping of utensils against stone. Every gesture is part of a larger, calming rhythm, one that carries a gentle continuity from the night that has passed. The castle or settlement hums with subdued activity. In outer courtyards, workers continue early maintenance, clearing snow, arranging firewood, tending small plots of winter crops, and adjusting coverings to protect them from the residual frost. Tools are lifted and carried deliberately, every step calculated to conserve energy while still accomplishing necessary labor. The air is filled with the soft sound of wood, stone, and water in motion, punctuated occasionally by the low murmur of conversation. These murmurs are quiet, restrained, forming a gentle background to the larger orchestra of mid-morning life. Patrolling guards continue their rounds with a measured awareness. Their attention remains on the environment. Even as daylight brings clarity, eyes glance toward distant hills, rooftops, and forested edges, scanning for subtle movements or unexpected changes. The long nights have taught that dangers are not always immediate or loud. They often arrive slowly, imperceptibly, and it is the quiet observation, the sustained, patient attention, that preserves safety. Each patrol step is deliberate, muscles warmed by slow motion, senses gently heightened but never strained or rushed. Within the halls, interior work continues with a similar, reflective tempo. Laundry is carried from early soaking to careful wringing, and garments are layered or repaired with patience. Firelight flickers alongside the increasing daylight, a companion to the human rhythm of preparation and attention. Small children, where present, are observed quietly by caregivers, their play gentle and unobtrusive, allowing elders and laborers to maintain their tasks uninterrupted. The balance of quiet movement and soft observation forms a delicate harmony, a blend of care, habit, and subtle endurance. Those attending to animals, horses, oxen, chickens, move slowly, speaking in soft tones, mindful of both warmth and fatigue. Every motion is deliberate, every step cautious. Feeding, grooming, and watering are conducted with attentiveness to the health and behavior of the animals. Their breath, visible in the cool air, rises and disperses in thin clouds, a gentle accompaniment to the rhythmic sounds of movement and the soft echo of hooves on frost-hardened stone. Each moment is imbued with a quiet awareness that survival, though routine, depends on the careful maintenance of life, warmth, and order. The day is also a time for inspection and subtle repair. Gates are checked, small leaks in roofs or walls are attended to, and tools are arranged for use later in the day. The pace is slow, the hands steady, guided by experience and familiarity with both environment and routine. Even the smallest details, an uneven stone, a misaligned beam, a cold draft, receive careful attention, ensuring that the day will remain manageable, that comfort and safety persist despite the continuing presence of winter's subtle pressures. From windows and ramparts, the scenery of mid-morning can be quietly observed. Distant hills, the glint of frozen rivers, and the soft haze of early sun over fields and forests create a muted panorama. Observers notice these details with calm attentiveness. The way frost melts unevenly, the movement of animals across fields, the subtle shift of wind through bare branches. Such observations are quiet, unhurried, and reflective, reinforcing awareness while preserving energy, a gentle extension of the vigilance exercised through the night. For the residents, this mid-morning period often includes a pause, a soft breath between tasks. A moment is taken to feel the warmth of sun on hands or face, to adjust clothing layers, to sip water or warm broth. The mind wanders slowly over the details of the night and the early hours, registering the subtle changes in light, temperature, and sound. Even in this quiet reflection, the lessons of endurance remain. Careful movement, patient attention, and gentle observation are continuous, shaping both body and mind. In shared spaces, occupants move quietly past one another. There is no rush, no competition, only the gentle interweaving of tasks and presence. Where one stirs food, another tends fires. Where one brushes animals, another sweeps frost from thresholds. The soft interchange of motion creates a rhythm of its own, hypnotic in its steadiness, soothing to the observer and calming to the participants. Each action, small and repetitive, reinforces the invisible structure of survival that defines life during these long, cold months. The natural world continues its subtle influence. The cold air still bites at exposed skin, though less sharply than before sunrise. Birds, cautious after the long night, begin their quiet calls. Smoke drifts upward from multiple chimneys, carrying warmth and signaling occupation to all within sight. Even the sun's warmth is uneven, patching some spaces with gentle heat while leaving others shaded and cool. The inhabitants adjust to this variability with patience, aware that endurance requires both attention and adaptability. By the end of this mid-morning period, the day has fully settled into its rhythm. Survival is not a matter of panic or haste, but of measured, repeated attention. Warmth is maintained, nourishment is secured, and the environment is monitored continuously yet unobtrusively. Those who rise early understand that the long winter day requires patience, observation, and careful, deliberate action. The soft, hypnotic rhythm of activity, combined with the quiet awareness of surrounding pressures, forms a lullaby of motion, a continuous, gentle engagement that reassures as it guides bodies and minds into the day. Even as tasks continue, there is a pervasive sense of calm endurance. Nothing is rushed, nothing is overstated. Each sound, the scraping of wood, the soft clatter of metal, the distant call of birds, becomes a part of the gentle soundtrack of survival. Each movement, the stoking of a fire, the brushing of a horse, the gentle shifting of a blanket, serves as a reminder of careful, patient attention. Mid-morning is not marked by spectacle or excitement, but by quiet persistence, a measured unfolding of activity that bridges the long night and the slow day, sustaining life in its simplest, most essential form. As the afternoon drifts slowly into the soft embrace of evening, a gentle hush settles across the landscape. Shadows lengthen quietly, stretching along stone walls, frozen courtyards, and narrow pathways. The sun dips lower, casting a muted golden light that lingers only briefly before fading into the cooler tones of dusk. In these final hours, life moves with a deliberate, unhurried rhythm. The day's routines have reached their natural pause, and the inhabitants of the castle, settlement, or outpost begin to sense the approach of the long, quiet night ahead. There is a peculiar comfort in this transition, a soft acknowledgement of effort concluded and care attended to. Fires burn steadily in hearths, their warmth spilling gently into rooms and halls, and the subtle scent of smoke mingles with the lingering aromas of earlier meals. A few stray beams of sunlight catch dust motes in their path, making the ordinary visible in a slow, reflective manner. These fleeting illuminations invite the mind to wander, to settle into awareness without urgency, as if the day itself is sighing and yielding to rest. Within the living quarters, preparations for night are carried out quietly. Bedding is arranged thoughtfully, blankets and furs layered to capture residual warmth, and simple rituals of comfort, adjusting a pillow, smoothing the covers, are observed with gentle attention. The motions are deliberate, repetitive, and soothing, allowing both body and mind to release tension accumulated during long hours of cold, labor, and vigilance. There is no rush. The quiet endurance of the day encourages a reflective slowness, a measured acknowledgement that the coming hours will demand patience and care. Outside, the world itself seems to pause. The wind moves with a softened whisper, brushing branches and stirring loose snow with a muted touch. Distant hills and frozen rivers are bathed in the gentle grays of twilight, and shadows deepen into corners once brightly illuminated. Animals, tending to their own rhythms, settle into warmth and quiet, while those charged with their care move slowly, completing last rounds with attention and care, then stepping aside to rest. Even in these ordinary motions, there is a pervasive sense of calm awareness, a hypnotic repetition that has characterized the day from its first light. For those who have kept watch, the final preparations for night involve a reflective pause. Weapons, tools, and provisions are checked once more, not in haste or fear, but with a patient attention born from long experience. Eyes sweep the surrounding area with quiet familiarity, noting subtle changes in terrain, frost, or wind direction. There is comfort in these repetitions. Each careful motion is a quiet assurance that safety has been observed, that vigilance has persisted, and that the long night will be faced with preparedness rather than anxiety. As the last vestiges of daylight fade, a gentle quiet descends. Conversations diminish to murmurs or cease entirely. The murmur of daily life softens into a calm background, punctuated only by small, deliberate sounds. The shifting of feet on stone, the settling of walls, the crackle of fire, the rustle of furs and clothing. This ambient calm forms a natural lullaby, a hypnotic soundscape that signals the end of activity and the approach of rest. The mind, unhurried and soothed by repetition and familiarity, begins to drift with the rhythm of life itself. In these reflective moments, one becomes acutely aware of warmth and body sensations. Layers of clothing trap residual heat. The hearth radiates slowly. Hands, once chilled, regain a gentle warmth. Breath rises softly into cool air, forming ephemeral clouds that dissipate quietly. There is a gentle interplay between the body's needs and the environment's pressures, a dance of endurance, subtle adjustment, and habitual care. Each inhalation and exhalation is a reminder that survival, though largely routine, requires ongoing attentiveness. The night, once approaching, carries with it a sense of subtle suspense, though not alarm. It is a quiet, enveloping presence, reminding all who remain awake that the absence of light alters perception. Shapes are softened, distances appear longer, sounds are amplified, and every motion requires deliberation. Yet within this gentle awareness is a calm confidence, earned through the day's careful rhythms. Comfort is not complete, but it is steady. Fatigue is acknowledged without resistance. Observers of the night understand that patience, warmth, and quiet vigilance are the natural companions of evening. Inhabitants gradually settle into bed, on straw, furs, or simple wooden frames. There's an intentional slowing of movement, stretching, shifting, arranging coverings, tucking in blankets. The small, repeated motions provide a comforting prelude to sleep, a measured acknowledgement of effort concluded, tasks completed, and challenges met with careful attention. Thoughts drift slowly, like leaves carried by a gentle current, passing over the mind without disturbance, as the body releases tension in waves of exhaustion and warmth. Through the long hours ahead, sounds and sensations continue, though muted. Distant wind brushes stone walls. Firelight flickers gently in hearths. Animals shift quietly in stalls. These ordinary noises are neither threatening nor alarming. They are markers of life and continuity, subtle reminders that the night is observed and endured. Sleep comes not suddenly, but gradually, encouraged by repetition, by warmth, and by the hypnotic rhythm of the day itself. The mind is soothed by patterns, by careful attention paid to detail, and by the persistent, patient rhythm of human activity in cold winter months. As sleep deepens, reflections of the day linger quietly. Tasks are remembered in gentle flashes, fires tended, animals fed, walls maintained, meals prepared, guards attentive. The body recalls cold endured and warmth captured, the careful interplay of vigilance and repose, and the subtle triumph of quiet survival. There is no fanfare, no sudden exhilaration, only a soft, enduring sense of completion, of presence, and of continuity. The night is accepted, not feared, and the mind drifts along the natural currents of rest. Finally, the castle, hall, or homestead rests. Even the most diligent of watchers may close their eyes briefly, trusting the rhythms of the environment, the presence of companions, and the quiet endurance cultivated through long practice. The darkness, once uncertain, becomes a canvas for dreams, for reflection, and for gradual release from the day's burdens. The night is no longer merely endured. It is accepted, framed by the soft knowledge that careful attention, patience, and gentle persistence have guided those within its bounds safely through another day. In this way, the final hours of the day unfold, slowly, deliberately, and hypnotically. Life moves with a quiet rhythm, blending warmth, vigilance, and observation into a seamless pattern. Sleep arrives gently, a natural companion to the measured pace of existence, carrying the mind and body into rest, reflection, and renewal. The long winter night, once imposing, becomes a calm environment in which endurance and attention coexist with relaxation and repose. The day concludes not with drama, but with quiet. The lessons of patience, careful observation, and measured activity echo softly through the halls and chambers. The body feels warmth, fatigue, and satisfaction in equal measure. The mind drifts through memories of tasks completed and hours observed. And as darkness deepens fully, the world embraces stillness, allowing both human and environment to rest together in a calm, hypnotic surrender to night.